a able-bodied independent senior moves in and they don't want to move out, is there any assurance that we would have that this wouldn't turn into that?
Well, we've been working pretty closely with the city as far as how we're going to redesign the building, rehab the building and everything. We'll work up some sort of, rules and regulations of occupancy that'll be part of the tenant lease, that once they are no longer independent by some standard that we can all agree to, that when their lease expires, they will not be renewed.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Patrick. Ms. Scott?
I have a question. This may seem to come out of left field, but do you have any plans on making it a smoke-free building?
That I have absolutely no idea. I don't know how apartment buildings work right now. I don't know if they're smoke-free or not.
But we are going to put, where's Dover? Where? Oh, hey, Dover.
Well, I mean, my question just related to, I've been reading on sprinklers in high-rise buildings because I'm curious about the Wedgwood and doing my own research on that, and there's three main causes, and you correct me, Chief, if I'm incorrect here, that there's three major risks for fires in residences, and cooking, smoking, and children playing with dangerous play by children are the three major risk factors for fires. If it's an older community, then you don't have children playing with fire, so it leads it kind of down to cooking and smoking. That was more of my question, was if there was a possibility of possibly making it a smoke-free building, which would eliminate one of those possible hazards.
I can certainly ask my client. And one more thing I need to emphasize, he owns the building. They bought the building. The previous owners, the owners that were there during the fire, they're long gone. So he's
Okay.
a member of Castle Hills community now.
And also in doing my research, I've come to find out that once you bring it up to code with sprinkler systems and the appropriate fire protection between each unit and everything that will be done according to the, I'm assuming, universal building code or the building code that you're using, actually high-rises are one of the safest places to live in my research. So thank you so much. Welcome to Castle Hills.
If I may elaborate just briefly on what Ms. Scott said. I've already met with Mr. Bernanke numerous times. I've made it very clear that I would not release a C of O on my portion, my side of it, without having current fire sprinklers, the building completely sprinkled, and brand new alarm system that meets the current code and requirements. He understands that 100%, and it's his intentions, as he's expressed to me, to bring all of that to code. As a direct result of this fire, the actual state laws have changed, and any residential high-rise building in the state of Texas has to be sprinkled now. There is a date that's in place that actually is a few years down the road. He did express to me that he thought about if we would entertain that. I stood my ground and I said no, I would not. It's the safety of the residents, the safety of the building is my utmost concern. And I told him I was there for the fire. I was one of the members that was inside the building. I would not go through that again, and he understood completely.
Our EVAC, I call them EVAC, the electronic vocal command type thing, is that undercurrent? Is that required right now?
I don't believe it's required for this particular building. There's certain situations that dictate when that needs to be, and a lot of times it has to do with amusements, areas where there are loud noises and things where it'd be very difficult to hear the actual alarm system. That's something that we could certainly explore and maybe look at doing as we move forward. I can say in my experience talking with Mr. Bernanke, he's been very open. He has the same concerns that we do. And that's something that I'm sure that he would certainly entertain if, we addressed it with him.
Great, thank you so much.
Hold on, Dover, have a seat just a second. Ms. Winger, do you have another question, please?
I think you're clarifying certain things here, but the problem is, again, the word potential. Maybe Mr. Bernanke has the best of intentions. He said potential developer. He's not necessarily the developer. You're welcoming something into the city. You don't know who you're welcoming because we don't actually have a concrete developer yet. That's the problem. We need to know who we're talking to.
Robbie?
Well, if, Mr. Bernanke is the owner, developer, because he's developed other properties in the area, I think. And also, I do believe there's excess of $12 million that you'll get historic credit, wow, tax credits. I think somewhere around that, anyway, in excess of 10 million, I'll say. And, my question is, why not bring in young people that are gonna go out and participate in the community and in the businesses and purchase and help our merchants, rather than having it, this is a question, why not have them instead of having it a senior living?
I have a question on that. So what if a young person does move in, come in and want to live there? Is there going to be an age limit or?
Again, I'm not, I apologize, Pat Bernanke cannot be here tonight. I'm one of his attorneys.
Sure.
I don't know the answer to that, but I believe normally it's customary that if you're going to have a senior facility, you do have some sort of age requirements. You know, normally having a senior living next door to a young family with small kids is not the most
Sure.
compatible type of situation. So normally senior housing is limited to people 55 and above.
Before you can even get started on this with permitting, and Mr. Brennan and Mr. Rapley, permitting and everything, they're going to have to jump through a million hoops. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. I mean, this thing is just a paper, say, hey, keep going with your project, or, you know, we're looking at hoping you have a good project. It commits us to nothing.
That's what I thought.
And-
It basically doesn't have anything. Patrick, welcome to Castle Hills, and I would hope that council would do the same thing, but of course, it's up to them to put their name on that. So I hope that when we get into the nuts and bolts of it, that, and Mr. Molinar brought up a fact. I sat down with Chief Dover, and I made him go through every single aspect of when he was on the third floor and people were fighting for their lives. So I take that very, very seriously, and I heard every single blow, including some tape footage. So I understand what Mr. Molinar is talking about, and I understand the people who fear the people that won't make it out of there next time should there become a fire. But with sprinkling systems, state-of-the-art things like that, I don't know. I would hope the council would put their name on it, as I did. That's a good one.
Mayor, to answer your
Write that
question,
down.
once the plans are submitted, we go through a full review process, permitting, and like Chief Dover said, that he wouldn't sign off until the Ts are crossed and the Is are dotted on those permits.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make one small amendment to the resolution. Mr. Christensen indicated that they would not have a problem with adding use of historic tax credits. So I would like to amend the resolution in the resolved section where it says, "The City Council hereby supports the redevelopment efforts of 6701 Blanco Road, LP," and insert language using historic tax credits in its efforts to revitalize the Wedgwood building, housing community, and believes that the redevelopment will have a positive impact on the welfare of Castle Hills residents and the community as a whole.
Mayor, may I add on to that? Or just to mention something, I'm
Sure,
sorry.
why not?
I'd love to leave the options open for Mr. Christensen, and well, you obviously realize the crowd, that what their expectations are here.
Loud and
But
clear.
I would like to, at the bare minimum, commit ourselves to ensuring what Ms. McLean said, and as well, ensuring that we're not going to get into a situation where we have people that are not able-bodied living in an 8-story building that's detrimental to their health and putting our first responders at greater risk. At the very least, I'd like to get those in stone and say, proceed with caution.
Okay, understood.
Okay. All right, so where are we at? Did you propose an
I
amendment?
proposed an amendment adding the language using historic tax credits after the name of the developer.
Okay.
That was my amendment.
Okay.
Then-
Do we have a second on that? Let's get that out of the way.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? It's unanimous, thank you. The next one? JR?
I'd like to propose an amendment asking that they focus on primarily independent living and to minimize the potential for people that are not able-bodied, to minimize the risk for them and first responders.
Okay, we have a motion, that's in the form of a motion, Douglas?
Well, man, Mr. Brennan, can you actually have that?
I don't see how they can just put seniors in there, but that's another thing.
So I have a suggestion for maybe a way to say that without saying it in so many words.
However you like to say it, I just like to get the idea across.
In the third whereas, we say the Wedgewood is currently unsuitable for occupancy, leaving Castle Hills without this vital senior living option. If we just inserted the word, one adjective to describe able-bodied or
Independent?
or mobile or
Independent?
How about mobile? Incapacitated.
incapacitated means you can't, means you have no capacity. Oh, non-incapacitated.
Why don't we find out why it has to be a senior living?
Why don't we do this? Why don't we welcome them into town, and then when they've got to jump through all the hoops in order to get here, cover it then.
Well, the thing, I don't have a problem with the whereas saying senior living option because that's what it was. That's not saying that's what it has to be. That's not what it's saying what it's going to be, but that's what it was. Just my 2 cents on that.
We have an amendment approved. We also have a motion on the table. We're getting ready to wrap this up. So anybody who would like to add something, go ahead. I just want to say that I'm all for seniors, okay? So I don't get the you know what kicked out of me in the local letter that's going to come out. Al? And I've got a Luby's card too.
Well, I'm there with you. It just, Mr. Mayor, it just seems like you are personally very interested in the Wedgewood being a senior.
I am very interested in economic development.
And I too welcome the gentleman here. Welcome to Castle Hills. It's just time for Castle Hills to progress. You and I won't be here, well, you might be here. We probably won't be here 10, 15 years from now. We need to be thinking that far ahead. I want my children and their children to be able to have the opportunity to live in a nice place in the center of San Antonio, that's where we are, and have access to the airport, have access to downtown, have access to the whole place, and not restrict ourselves to seniors. When you're 65 years old, your the taxes that you pay are frozen. If you're younger than that, and I don't know if it works that way for an apartment complex, but if you're paying taxes, you're going to continue to pay taxes until you reach the age of 65. Then they're going to be stable. But if we're getting people in there that are 65 already, have a limited income, limited taxes they're going to be able to pay, where is the growth?
Al, you're singing to the choir here. The last time I started talking about young people, I got accused by somebody 2 years older than me that I hate seniors.
Well,
And it was in writing, and it went out to half of this city. So guess what? I have a Luby's discount senior card. I am a senior.
As am I. As am
And
I.
I would hope that this gentleman goes back, if the guy still even wants to buy it, I'd put it up for sale in the morning. But if the guy still wants to buy it and say, you know, there's concerns about the fact that maybe you could have younger people on this side of the building and older people on this side of the building. The Wedgewood had all sorts of people in there.
Because my home, my present home, I'm a senior, and because I live there, doesn't mean that I'm going to sell it only to a senior, or that I'm going to declare it when I sell it as a home for seniors.
I'm with you.
Thank you, sir.
So for anybody to think that Tim Howell signed that letter for just seniors, let's get it real straight. Everything's on? Okay, let's get it real straight. Tim Howell loves everyone from 6 months old to...
Hey.
Only 6 months?
Okay,
Mr.
the
Christensen?
clarification, the letter says that it leaves Castle Hills without a vital senior living option.
It doesn't say.
It doesn't say this is going to be the new senior living option, it just says it's leaving the city without a vital senior living option. Nowhere in here does it clearly state that they're going to 100% develop it into a senior living community.
But I respect Al's
says-
thing, I really do.
So whatever they end up developing it into is not stated very clearly in this resolution. It just says that the Wedgewood currently being unsuitable for occupancy leaves us without a vital senior living option. It doesn't say this is going to be the new senior living option.
Maybe you should have left off the word senior and should have left off the words affordable.
Well, affordable's not in there anymore.
Portable's not in there anymore.
The,
It's been pulled.
the term is sustainable market value.
Al,
There is
thank
no
you.
there's no affordable anymore.
Let's take off senior as well, in our law.
Can't do that, I've already written the letter. Would you step up here, please? Who is that?
John,
I'm not sure anymore. I mean, we've known each other a long time, but now I'm sorry, I need to,
I'm close to being a senior, but I'm not. But the statement that we don't have senior living in Castle Hills is wrong. We have Brookdale.
oh,
It doesn't say
And-
without, and it says without this
this,
And
vital.
no,
This-
I'm not arguing your letter. I'm making points here. Moretta said we don't have senior living in Castle Hills. We do. We have Brookdale.
that's
And
not
this
what I
gentleman
said.
right here said that it was going to be a senior living facility. I'm not standing here arguing about the letter. I'm just saying what he said is that it's going to be a senior independent living facility. That's not in your letter. That's what this gentleman said. And we have Brookdale in Castle Hills. I'm just stating facts. That's all I'm doing.
you sure you want to do this? Okay. We have a motion and we have a second. Now, that I know for a fact. We have a amendment to that, and we have a second, and we have a vote, and that I know for a fact. So I would ask someone to call for the vote since the mayor can't do it. Thank you, Douglas. Thank you. All in favor of this, please raise your hand. Of the amendment to the amendment. Okay, it's unanimous. The original amendment, the original motion. Sure, we got plenty of time. Let's start at the beginning and roll the tape.
The fir-
Nanny? Oh, go ahead.
The First Amendment was to add using historic tax credits, and that passed 5-0 to amend the resolution.
Nothing like chase everybody out of here. Johnny, you and Dover want to take off? No, go ahead. Go ahead, we don't need you. Y'all go ahead to be with your families.
And honestly, I'm not sure we ever settled on the language for the Second Amendment. There were 5 things thrown out, so Mrs. Jaffett brings up a good point. I'm not sure that we knew what we were voting on that.
Pat, I got a strong feeling this is going to pass. I'll text you, okay? Okay, thank you. I'm lost. I don't know where we're at.
Mr. Trevino proposed an additional amendment to the wording to somehow indicate that these are independent, mobile seniors, but there was no place in here to word that because this whereas just states that it's leaving a currently unsuitable for occupancy, leaving Castle Hills without this vital senior living option. So if anyone else sees a place to stick that in there, you're more than welcome to jump in and help out Mr. Trevino there, put that in.
Is that in the
Find a
form of a
place.
motion, Mr. Trevino, to add to the original?
yes, sir.
Thank you. Do I have a second for Mr. Trevino's? Excuse me, folks, this is my wife. Mr. Trevino, will you take over the meeting, please?
So I'm understanding that Second Amendment's already been voted on, correct? Okay, can we get a motion on the first? We go back to the original one, correct?
Original motion.
Right, so can I get a second on that?
We already seconded it, so we just
Okay,
need to
so I
vote
get-
on the original.
Call for a vote, all in favor?
Yep.
All against? Mr. Gregory's, thank you. I think that is it. Can I get a motion for adjournment? First by Mr. Gregory. And second by Ms. Scott. Thank you. Thank you for sticking with us. Have a good night.
Ladies and gentlemen, we had a family member that was ill, so that's why I took that call. Thank you.